Today I'm going to show you how to create a new mesh from a layer preset, and then we're going to also go through that 3D mesh and manipulate it and do different things in order to change your materials and change everything else. So the first thing you want to do is just create a document. I just have a basic 600 or 800 by 600 pixels, and you want to make sure that your workspace is again in your 3D, because otherwise you can't do a lot of the things that you need. And you can do that by changing it up here in the upper right hand corner, so from Essentials to 3D or vice versa. So I'll just keep it in my 3D. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to come to this box down here, and as you see, you have a couple different ways to create a new 3D object. We've done the 3D extrusion, which is still something that you can do if you want to do a cube, but it saves a little bit more time if you just do it straight from the mesh. So this part right here is where we're going to do. You want to click that if it's not already clicked, and then you can choose any of these shapes that you want. I like choosing the wine bottle. You can do a little bit more with it. That's easier to show. So you're going to hit create, and as you see, we have the wine bottle here. And if you look and open up the wine bottle layers, you have 3 different layers. You have the label, the bottle, and the cap. So the label, the bottle, and the cap. You go through here and you also see that you have underneath each layer is a separate tab, which is like the label material, the bottle material, and the cap material. So with these, this is how you would change like the color of your glass, the different textures and different materials that your label can be. This is something that we'll get to in a little bit. And so with these mesh presets, this is something that's really used for packaging mock-ups or 3D animations. So this is if you were making a new wine, and you wanted to see the mock-up of what kind of bottle, what the bottle would look like with the label, with everything put into it. This is something that you could use to do that. So first we're going to go straight down, and you see if you click on the label, this is in the individual label. And you can scale everything that you want. So like I'm going to move this down because a wine bottle's label is not actually like this. So I'm going to scale it along the Y, and it makes it a little bit shorter, just like a wine bottle actually would. And then I'm just going to move that up on the Y axis to make it a little bit more centered. And as you see, that was simple, and we just used the toggles in the middle of your screen. If you go up here, you have your properties that are the same. You don't have near as many, so you have just your mesh and your coordinates. So this is the same that it would be on any of your 3D presets. And as you see, you have this thing called catch shadows and cast shadows. You can change if you want your object to have a shadow or not below it. So this is just the glass itself, but this has the shadows that it has normally. So that's just the label. That's just manipulating the label a little bit from what it was. If you go down to the label material is where you can do a lot more. So if you want to change your material, here I'm going to change this to a large list. It's up here in this little spherical at the top of this property. So you go down and you have all of these different options that you can do for the label material. So if you want to do something like metal chrome, it would make that label metal chrome, or brass or something like that. You have a lot more to go off of. So I like to, especially if I'm going to change the colors of it, I like to use a no texture, because then it gives you a little bit more options, especially when you get up into here, when you can actually change the color. So if we wanted to manipulate the color a little bit and make it, I don't know, this turquoisey teal color, you can do that, and that's not a big deal. And so I like to also I like the cap material to be the same. So I'm going to go ahead and just change that now before I get any further. And what I did was just use, as soon as you choose the diffuse, you see off to the side, your mouse turns into the color picker, and so you can choose the exact same color if you've made your own for the first. Then you go below and you have this box here, and this box shows you like the shine. You can raise the shine, lower the shine, so this makes it more like a paper matte, and more shine would make it more like a glossy type of a paper. So that one to me is not as important in a wine bottle label. You can also do the reflection on the material. This is another, like, it goes hand in hand with the shine, the glossier it is. For reflection here, I don't feel like, especially for the label, for the glass is something different. So if you want more of a shine and more of a reflection where you can see yourself in the glass, that's when it's used more. The roughness, texture of it, so is it smooth, is it not? I mean, that's a common sense one, I believe. And then the bump. The bump takes whatever texture you have and it makes it more or less. So if we want to go to something that's going to have texture, so let's do fabric leather. And so if you look here, if you change the roughness of it, it just makes that texture a little bit more prominent. And then if you change the bump, it's going to take this texture here and it's going to make that even more prominent. So as you see, you can kind of see it go up and see it come out more a little bit, if that makes sense. And then if you go back, it kind of flattens itself back. So that's something that you could use for any of the other ones. Obviously for a wine bottle, it's not something that you would use typically. All right, so I'm going to change the color back. Okay, and so the bump here is, again, not near as necessary. The opacity, this changes how well you can see through it or not. For a label, you're not going to want to be able to see through it because you're usually going to have words of some kind on there. So now we're going to go down to the bottle material, and again, you can change your material here. And so if you look, you have different glasses that you can do. You can also do these gemstones, which you would never use a gemstone for a bottle. So I'm going to do, I kind of like the idea of a frosted glass for a wine bottle, and then you can change that color again. I'm a big fan of the dark blue wine bottles, and so you just hit OK, and you kind of see it just tints it a little bit. And again, you can mess with your shine, your reflection, your roughness, and so I'm going to make it a little bit rougher just because it is going to be, just because it is this type of a glass. And so I'm also going to make the opacity a little bit darker. That's just going to make the wine bottle itself darker. As you see, it changed that wine bottle itself. And then the cap I'm not really going to mess with because we've already changed the color of it and made it to what we want. So as of right now, this is the design and color of our wine bottle. And if you look down here, you have all these other buttons up here that stand, that you can filter whatever you're seeing. So right now you're seeing everything. You're seeing the entire scene, which, as it says, filter by the whole scene, which is everything that would be in here, under here. So if you had multiple materials, it would show all of their, it would show all of the objects and their materials underneath it, just like the wine bottle. So the next one that you have is the 3D, or this is the filter by meshes. And so that's just the faces of these. This is not like manipulating them. This is just changing their size. So changing the wine glass or the cap size and moving it up, or changing just the entire scene, making the wine bottle itself bigger and everything like that. This is where you're filtering by the materials. So this is what we have been working with labeling the material, the label, the bottle, and the cap materials. And you get to, that's the coloring and everything else that you want to mess with, the reflection and roughness and bump, etc. And then finally, this is your infinite light. You're filtering by your lights. This is the way that the light is shining on your bottle, so you can change that and you see the shadow changing, and this is just a way to look at all kind of angles and lit up. So you can also add a new one. So if you go down to the bottom of that box, you hit this light bulb here, and you have 3 different options. You've got a spotlight, which I'll show you what a spotlight does, and this is just where you move this light around and it goes specifically on certain points. Or you can right click and hit delete. So I'm going to add another one, and we're going to try the infinite light. So this is just adding a second infinite light for you. So as you see, if you look at the object, because I have 2 infinite lights, you have two sets of shadows on each side because you have an infinite light coming from both angles. This is, again, just another way to light up your object in order for you to determine, design, and see how it would look with different shades or roughness or bumps and everything like that. It just makes it a little bit easier. So if you go back to this entire scene, it also shows those two infinite lights in your panel. These are just some of the ways that you can manipulate your objects and do a 3D mesh. I want to thank you for watching.